Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather today. I'm meteorologist Al Peterlin. I'd like to talk about the weather health stresses for January 28, 2026. We do keep additional graphics available at tpatw.com, and we do maintain a patient weather storefront on Amazon. Amazon purchases made through our patient weather storefront to support the activities of patient weather. Looking at the surface map for the 28th, you can see that high pressure truly dominates most of the nation, and it's cold. However, there is a little bit of moisture flowing back into the Pacific Northwest. There is increasing and rising dew points coming across the south and southeast, especially Florida. And you'll note that there is still some lake effect snows across the upper portion in the Great Lakes, and a little bit of that is making its way all the way down into the mountains of West Virginia. Looking at our vitality index, that combination map of all of the individual weather elements that has an impact on human health, and you'll notice that it is much reduced in this terribly cold high pressure pattern. There is still some activity going on here in the Pacific Northwest, a little bit of something brewing in the Rockies and Plains, little bit of activity going on here in the Southeast, and very minimal activity going on up here in New England. Looking at pressure change, this is something always important for those with are sensitive to pressure changes. We have rising pressure here in the Pacific Northwest, all the way from Northern California across Western Washington and Oregon. We have some rising pressure here in the northernmost reaches of New England, but we have falling pressure here from eastern Wyoming, eastern Colorado, and across Nebraska and Kansas. Looking at temperature change, temperatures remain brutally cold, but you'll see we are trying to pull a little bit of warmth here up in the plains, and that's just because of that flow coming around that high pressure center to the east, and it's bringing in some Gulf moisture up the plains. You can see this a little bit more significantly on the dew point temperature map, where we can see the dew point temperatures rising dramatically again here in the Pacific Northwest. You can see that we have rising dew point temperatures here, again with that flow off the Gulf across the south, the southeast, and notice pretty strong across the state of Florida and into the Carolinas. Vapor pressure confirming, but really not showing too much additional information. Looking at the availability of oxygen in the atmosphere, you can see we're picking up a bit of a migraine risk here in the westernmost portions of Washington, Oregon. And then we're picking up a bit of migraine risk here in the upper Midwest, or up the upper plains, eastern North Dakota, northern Minnesota, across the Michigan Upper Peninsula, and rather strong there, back across into New England. But note that we're picking up a significant risk of migraine here in the eastern portions of the Ohio Valley, Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, into Maryland, Delaware, and into New York State. But one little interesting aspect here in New York State, of course, is we'll be talking about the risk of asthma almost all over the rest of the country. But notice, in the midst of this migraine risk, we have a little bit of asthma risk here in the northeasternmost portions of upstate New York. And speaking of asthma and arthritis, you can see we have that risk literally from the Rockies across the Plains, Mississippi Valley, south and southeast, but it is most significant here in the Texas, Oklahoma Panhandle and across the state of Kansas into Nebraska, and that is the most significant area. You'll note that although Florida rarely shows too much activity, this risk of asthma for Florida will be significant enough that it will be something to talk about there, and again in southeastern Georgia. Thanks for visiting the patient and the weather. Your comments are appreciated, and if you hurt, tell us where you're located.